Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samya sanputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samya sambuddhoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛, Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture today. My name is Heng. Today is Sunday, October 2nd, here in the Gold Coast of Australia, and it would be Saturday night in California. Welcome again. We are about to request the spiritual presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Avatamsaka assembly, and if I don't have to sneeze, we'll proceed and do that right now. Here we go. Get settled again. Oops. When you get a cramp in full lotus, you have to undo your legs. So, here we go. And one more piece of protocol, we're going to acknowledge country. The Kombu-Meri people of the Ugambi language group here in the Gold Coast region practice their spiritual connections to land, to living beings, and to all creation for tens of thousands of years. Today we acknowledge them as traditional custodians of this land, with gratitude as we share this land together, with sorrow for the costs of that sharing on our behalf, on our part, and hope that we can move to a place of justice and partnership together. We acknowledge their wisdom and their elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge all First Nations peoples whose sovereignty was never ceded. All right. Now, we got quite a program today, which I will jump into in a moment. and we were investigating the academic discipline called homiletics the other day. Homiletics, what is that about? If you're in a seminary, if you're training to be a priest or a minister or a rabbi, an imam, you learn how to preach. Homiletics is the study of preaching, how you give that sermon on Sunday morning. In our case, Sunday afternoon. And one of the conventions that is just part of the game, part of what you learn, is how to tell jokes. And there are websites online called Jokes for Pastors and Christian jokes, sanitized jokes that you can tell at the start. And I recall in my Methodist church in Toledo, waiting for the joke, because the pastor starts the sermon, starts his talk with a joke, and it's kind of rote, kind of automatic, and the laughs are often rote and automatic too. It's like more groans than laughter. But I have an authentic Buddhist joke, maybe one of the only Buddhist jokes, but I've got one, and I will tell it to you now, and you can groan or laugh. And the joke has to do with outside the New York Public Library in Manhattan, outside on the sidewalk, there is a vendor's cart, and he's got hot dogs, and of course they're vegan hot dogs, of course, for the sake of the joke. So they're vegan hot dogs. And so this guy comes up, and he looks at the vendor, and he thinks, so this poor living being. He says, I'll try him. So he goes, make me one with everything, he says. Is there laughter yet? Ah, that's not all. There's a punchline. Make me one with everything. So the vendor puts everything on it, mustard, ketchup, relish, extra pickles, and hands it back. And the customer hands him a $10 bill. And I don't know what hot dogs are going for in New York these days. Maybe vegan, they cost a little more. But there's no change coming back. And so the customer says, and the change? And the vendor says, change must come from within, he says. Yeah, good, we got some laughs, good, yeah. So there we go. That's our official homiletic sermon opening joke. You'll be glad to know. All right. So now, that's supposed to break the ice, and everybody's all relaxed now and ready to hear, the hard news of the Dharma. So, boy, oh boy, have we got it. Let's see here. This is right there. That's what we're looking for. Okay, let us share our screen. And today, what is going on? Today we have a new bodhisattva in our series. This is bodhisattva number 6. And his name is, or her name is, Forest of Vigor, Jingjin Lin Pusa. And so Jingjin sometimes is translated as strength. There we go, good. So strength or vigor. So vigor in Sanskrit is virya, V-I-R-Y-A, virya. And it's the same root as virility, which means potency and strength in English. So that's the word virile in English has a Sanskrit root, interestingly. So, strength. Jingjin, forest meaning lots of. All of these 10 bodhisattvas are forest of this and that. So our bodhisattva forest of vigor, we'll use the word vigor, that's our custom here. This bodhisattva is going to talk, he's going to praise the Buddha. That's what he's doing. All these bodhisattvas are praising the Buddha. But the topic they bring up, what they use in their praise, is totally up to them. And that's one of the discoveries of this series of investigations in chapter 20 of the Avatamsaka, is how widely varied are the praises, that the things the bodhisattvas pick out to praise. It's not always the Buddha. Sometimes they praise the Dharma, the teachings that the Buddha shares. Other times they praise the awakened nature. And that is the case today. This bodhisattva is going right to the Buddha nature, the thing that woke the Buddha up. Right? The Buddha was a prince who woke up because he, in Chinese, 明心见性, lit up his mind and saw his nature. And because of that, he became awake. He became the Buddha. So we've got the Buddha who wakes up, the awakened person, the human who woke up. And that's what our bodhisattva is praising. But the way he does it, the thing he chooses to praise, wow. Excuse me. As I was going through the preparation, kind of figure out what the sutra was talking about today, I understood why people say, oh, you know, that Avatamsaka Sutra, it's all about philosophy. I have to disagree. There are philosophical elements, but in the West, when we talk about philosophy, most often it's just matching your thoughts with my thoughts. Here in the Avatamsaka, he brings up something big, a big idea, but he goes deeper on it than simply talking about ideas, talking about thoughts, thinking about thoughts. He wants us to wake up as a result of following his big idea. What's his big idea? What is the world made of? What are all dharmas? That's his topic. Okay? Now, before you go to sleep and bounce off it and go, ooh, maybe there's still time to catch the football after this lecture. Before you go there, let's see if we can't make it come alive. Here we go. Ready? 尔时精进林菩萨成佛为例，普观十方而说颂言. Then, Bodhisattva Forest of Vigor received the Buddha's awe-inspiring strength, contemplated everywhere in all directions, and chanted the following verses in praise. Let's do the first one. Here we go. 诸法无差别，无有能知者，为佛与佛智，智慧究竟故. Dharmas have no differences among them. Nobody can truly know them. Buddhas alone share this knowledge. Their wisdom is ultimate. Right. What's he saying? He's saying things in the world that you see, hear, know, touch, taste, smell, are all the same. On the face of it, you go, wait, no, they're not. Pepper and salt are different. Salt and sugar are different. If you put a spoonful of sugar in your coffee, you might enjoy it. Put a spoonful of salt in your coffee, you don't want to drink it. That's different. Okay, that's not what he's saying. He's going deeper than that. He's not talking about what the senses know. And that's what he said. It's a big idea, right? He's talking about what is different in the world. And he's taking us down past what the senses know and distinguish: salty, sweet, bland, peppery, spicy. He's taking us past those things to what underlies all knowledge entirely. Okay? Can we go there? You bet. Let's do it. Buddhas alone know the underlying nature of all things. Their wisdom is ultimate. Okay? Praise the Buddha. Hallelujah. Praise Buddha. 如今与今世，其性无差别，法非法亦然，体性无有异。 the way the metal gold and the color gold in nature are not different. Dharmas and non-dharmas are the same, not different in substance and nature. Like, whoa, slow down here. Look at the Chinese. Ready? Let's work at it here. Now, this word cha, I read cha, is a complicated character. It's this one right here, for anybody who's paying attention here to the Chinese side. Ci, otherwise known as chi, otherwise known as cha, otherwise known as cha, right? When it's read cha with a fourth tone, it means mistake. That's the adjectival noun. That's the adjective. So we have mistakenly. Here, it means different. Cha, first tone. If you come from Manchuria, you call it chi, and Shifu would often point to this word and say it's got same character but two different words attached to it. One is cha, which means difference, to be different, and chi, which means mistake. Okay, so there we go. Ru, like, jin, gold, yu, jin, si, like gold and the color gold. Qi, their nature, wu, shibie, are not different. Fa, dharmas, fei fa, non-dharmas, yiran, are the same. Ti, substance, xing, nature, wu, you, have no, yi, difference. Can we let that sink in for a minute? Like gold and the color gold, their natures have no difference. Dharma and non-dharma are the same. Their substance and nature are not different. So what is he saying? He wants to teach us about dharmas and non-dharmas, not about gold. This is, he says, here, I'm going to squeeze it here. So immediately our bodhisattva is giving us, he said, what he wants to do, he's kneeling in front of the Buddha, he's got his palms together, he's singing, he's a poet, he's a chanter, a cantor, he is chanting in front of the Buddha. And he decides he's going to take on the nature of reality and what you can know. That's what he wants to chant about. And you go, wow, this is deep. This is not just a love song. He wants to teach us about the things that our eyes see, our ears hear, our mind knows. And he says they're all the same in their nature. Oop, whoa. Their nature, that means not the surface. So gold and the color gold, and now in thinking about this, I went here. Give me a second. There we go. Gold metal, meaning the stuff that comes out of the ground, the stuff you dig up that makes you rich. Gold prospecting. And there are rivers here in Australia where you can actually go and find gold nuggets, gold flakes. Gold metal and the color gold, which means not green, not red, not blue, but golden color. Maybe golden, that helps. This is an analogy. Do we understand deeply when gold and golden color impact our senses? What do they share? Well, a name, Mingzi, right? On the name, we call gold the metal. Maybe your mom has a golden wedding ring. Maybe you've got one on your hand. Maybe you've got a gold brooch or a necklace or a cross or something. Maybe you collect gold. Maybe you've got, medals issued by the government. My uncle in Canada used to collect what are called Governor General medals in Canada. Whenever there was an event, a World's Fair, they would stamp out a few of them, and he collected them. So that's a point. He made that point in his first line, but that's an analogy. He's pointing to something that we can see with our eyes and identify with our minds, but that's not his point. His point is to teach us about dharmas, the substance of dharmas. The Chinese is called Ti. Where are we? There we are. Ti, substance. And this word, Xing. Xing, the nature. Substance is what it's made of. The nature is a deeper look at what that substance, the stuff it's made of, is. You could say, water, and you go deeper, you say, H2O, hydrogen to oxygen. That would be the nature and the substance. So this is reality, and he's saying, what about it? There's no difference among gold, silver, lapis lazuli, crystal, mother of pearl, rubies, opals, and humans, and plant matter, mineral matter, animal matter, all these different categories of stuff, same stuff. Do you buy it? That makes sense to you? What do you get out of that? Well, let's test it out. Gold color. We look at that individual and we see gold color. Maybe orangey, reddish orange gold. So he's saying as we look at that we identify that, we say Huangjin in Chinese, l'or in French. We say it is gold in color. You don't believe it? Well, try this one. You like that better? There he is. Yeah, that's gold. Golden wallaby. He's our local. Yeah, we identify that as gold color. He's saying, however, gold metal is different. There he is. That's how you get that pretty gold color, is you eat the delicious, nutritious grass here in the Gold Coast. Okay? Lots of grass creates golden fur. Golden furred character. There he is. That's gold. Now, you could say, we could use the same analogy and say what? We could say, goldfish and the color gold are not different. Unfortunately, these goldfish are orange. I'm sorry. That's not gold. Those are orange goldfish. But for the sake of the comparison that he wants to make, we could point to all those different phenomenon in nature. Wallabies, golden wallabies. By the way, the golden wallaby is unique to us here in southeastern Queensland. That's one of our claims to fame, is we have golden wallabies. We also have chocolate wallabies too, which are spectacular. So the golden wallaby and the gold from the ground share something. They share a name, gold. If you look at it from the point of view of optics, the study of light, they're not really gold. It's how light touches keratin or something in their fur or in the scales of the goldfish, and it reflects back to our eye, and it says, this is gold. Well, it's actually, you could call it it's not a trick, it's just a phenomenon of nature, if you want to analyze it from the point of view of optics, of the study of light. So, okay, he's saying, right, the metal gold and the color gold share a name, and in their substance, they are identical, even though without that wallaby, without the goldfish, we would have to look at the metal to know what the color gold is. But once we see it, we go, okay, that's gold. We call that gold. It gets really complicated when you have white gold, right? Oh, don't go there. Never mind. So there are variations on gold that are not golden in color. Oh, but that just messes up the analogy. So he's giving us that and saying, what I want you to understand is that dharmas and non-dharmas in substance and nature are the same. All right? And you go, that makes no sense to me because I don't accept non-dharmas. What are non-dharmas? Whoa, boy, we're in deep water now, aren't we? And let's say you could just take any, so what is a dharma? A dharma simply means something that we can identify, some aspect of our world. The presence of water, the presence of a hurricane that destroys the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in central Florida, disrupting, and in Puerto Rico, oh my goodness, and in Cuba. And then the hurricane's gone, and you look and you say, well, my house has just been torn apart. My boat is now thrown up onto the roof because of the power of the wind that came through. Hurricane Ian just came through. And it was a Category 4 hurricane, which is almost as strong as hurricanes get. When it hit Puerto Rico, it was Category 5, which is the strongest. And in its wake, my house is destroyed. I can't drink water because it's polluted. At night, there's no electricity, so I can't boil water in my tea kettle. I don't have lights, and I don't dare leave my house because looters are coming to steal everything. So your life is just destroyed until things get back to normal, if they do, months later. So, yet the hurricane is gone. Where's the hurricane? The Dharma of Hurricane Ian doesn't exist once the winds die down. Where did it go? So that's the idea. It went where? Back to where it came from, which was what? Empty space? Now we're getting closer to what our Bodhisattva wants us to understand, is that as long as we are stuck on duality, on the absence of dharmas or the existence of dharmas, we're stuck. What the Buddha woke up to is the fact that both a hurricane and the hurricane's aftermath, where the hurricane is gone, the winds aren't blowing, the water's not rising, they both don't exist at all from the Buddha's point of view. Because why? Immediately when you talk about phenomenon, you have to say, what about the person perceiving, the person who knows these things? Do you have to have a knower before you can have something to know? He's saying, yes, the knower and the thing known both come from somewhere else. That's different than philosophy. He's pointing to the nature which underlies or intertwines with both object and subject. Subject and object are both neng zhi suo zhi, right? That's the way they use it in Chinese. Both those categories of the experience of knowledge itself are made up of other things. That's the Buddha's discovery. Let's take a look. I'm going to share my screen again. He said, what do we know? What do we know about things? Well, all things, he says, lack any difference. There is no perceiver of objects from the point of view of ultimate reality. The quality of all things is, the virtue of all things is that they are made up of components that both come together and then they cease to be. They are what he said, 苦空无常无我, right? All things are empty of any ultimate existence. Their ultimate existence is they have no ultimate existence. They are not satisfying. Once you have them, you don't have anything. So you never can say, this is the ultimate thing. My knowledge is ultimate. Furthermore, they have no inherent identifiable self different from other things, and they don't last. They are transient. He said these qualities are ultimate. If you know this, you can rest in the midst of a world of transient, unobtainable Dharma. 无知亦无得. There's nothing to know and nothing to get in the world of transient things. That's the Buddha's ultimate statement. That is a philosophical statement, but it's based on his direct perception. And he says, show me something that you got and you obtained that lasted and that satisfied, that hit the mark. You didn't need anything else after that. And one of the Buddha's disciples would pipe up and say, World Honor One, what about nirvana? And the Buddha would say, oh, very good, very good. All change must come from within. Right? So now we're ready for another joke after that philosophical statement. You ready for one? How do you know that your email came from a Buddhist? No attachments. So when the Buddha says no attachments, what he means is go ahead and try to grab something that is passing through as you grab it. There's nothing there. Ultimately, you grab it, it's gone, including the thing that grabs, including you, the grabber of the thing, are passing on, are transient, empty, 苦空无常无我, and there's no self in there. And you go, whoa, that's really scary, that's really deep. Yeah, it is. And your life and death depend on it. If we don't understand that, we turn right back around on this turning wheel. And if we do understand that, we leap out of the three realms. So of all this insight has been shared by Buddhists ever since the Buddha was, laid these principles down. And there's one list called the 100 Dharmas of the Sarbadans. There's a commentary called the Baifa Mingmen Lun, the Shastra on clarifying the 100 Dharmas. And it says that there are conditioned Dharmas or component Dharmas, Dharmas with relationships, and there's unconditioned Dharmas that have no relationships. And there's, count them up, the relational Dharmas that are made up of other stuff, there are every one in existence, and the unconditioned, 2. There are 2 Dharmas that are unrelated. What are they? Space, emptiness, this infinite space, and the other is nirvana. And you, by giving up, getting everything, you get nirvana. When you get it, you don't have anything. It's not different than everything, but you're not clinging to it. You're not attached to it. You're not trying to own it. Now, how is that helpful? Why do we care? Why would the Buddha talk about this? It's because if we can get to that place where we balance in the great middle way, then things can come and go and we're not knocked over by them. Our loved ones, our parents lose their seniors' residence because a hurricane tore the roof off and knocked the power lines down and uprooted the palm trees and trashed their boat. And so our parents' lives were threatened by a hurricane because they moved to Florida. the great snowbird exodus, they call that, where I used to live in Ohio. And most of Ohio moves to Florida in the winter. They do. There's this exodus. They go get in the car and drive down through Tennessee, through Kentucky, through Georgia, down to Florida. And my parents used to travel down to Florida for a couple weeks every winter. And, you know, that is a place where no hurricane ever hit exactly on Fort Myers, where called Lee County. Most of there are numerous deaths this time with Hurricane Ian, and most of those deaths were in one county, Lee County. And hurricanes, that was considered a safe place. The percentage of hurricanes that hit the west coast of Florida was pretty much zero. And that's exactly where the hurricane traveled. After, I might add, destroying Puerto Rico. And what a fine response from our president, Joe Biden, who will be traveling to Puerto Rico to offer assistance to the folks who usually get forgotten when the hurricanes hit, or worse, get insulted by the previous occupant of the White House. So lots of suffering, and there's just no security, right, in the world. If we can learn to balance when these events happen and not get knocked over, then our true non-attachment is working for us, because we see that conditions create the world and conditions end the world. So with that in mind, we tried our best to improve conditions for those people around us, strangers and friends alike. 无缘大慈，同体大悲, right? Kindness for people with whom we don't have relationships yet, and great compassion for all beings with whom we share a single body, and that's every living being. So we can start by not eating them for dinner. That's a good way to begin, to let them live out their lives in the bodies that they come with. We're all attached to our skin. We all love the skin that we come in. So letting living beings live out their normal span of years without intervening and eating them for food is a good way to begin being kind. So this wisdom is not simply there for us to say, cool, wow, that's deep, profound. It's wisdom for use. And that's where the Avatamsaka becomes so much more than simply a philosophical text, which most people who say that have never actually read the Avatamsaka in my experience. So once you read it, you discover, wow, this is really talking about ending suffering. And it's pointing to our bodhisattva, forest of vigor, is pointing to a reality deeper than or embedded within duality, which is it's this or that. It's dharmas or non-dharmas, right? The absence of dharmas implies the presence of dharmas. So he's saying you can get beyond them. You can get beyond that, and that's where you find the Buddha's wisdom and a chance for you to live in a way that balances and doesn't get knocked over when the hurricane blows through. So going to take a little break from this sound of my voice to point to something I'd like to share. Here we are. Bonk. There we go. It is here. Coming up, starting tomorrow, but carrying through the month of October, is a program called Ancient Wisdom in Modern Life. It's going to take place in Northern California, Pacific time, 7:30 p.m. on Sundays. And it's a series of talks. The goal is to share how the wisdom of the Buddha relates to and can be used to solve complex problems in every area of modern life. Problems that now threaten the sustainability of life on planet Earth. I'm going to be starting out tomorrow. That's the 2nd of October, California, 3rd of October. Here in the Gold Coast of Queensland, it's 12:30 p.m. In China, in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, it is 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'll be just talking about some of the ways that the Buddha Dharma can impact our lives and in the 21st century. Next week, on the 9th or the 10th, Bhikshuni Heng will be talking with Dr. Vives from Mexico, former DRBA student, about prajna psychoanalysis. Should be fascinating. Professor Ye will be the moderator. Professor Wu is the moderator for my talk from, retired from Boeing and be acting as moderator. The third week will be on the 16th and the 17th, Mysteries of Life and Death, with a bhikshuni from Taiwan whose life has been given to end-of-life issues. She's an expert in what you call a hospice care, palliative care for folks on the verge of stepping into the great mystery, which is death. Nancy Zhu will be the moderator, and these talks are in, by the way, Mandarin, English, and Vietnamese. Dr. Vu will be giving the fourth talk, Is There Life After Death? Professor Ye will be the moderator, and then Chan Yu, one of our administrators and faculty at DRBU, will be talking about awareness intelligence in the age of artificial intelligence. So talking about AI from a Buddhist perspective. I will be closing the month of talks on the 6th of November and the 7th of November. So that's coming up, just to let people know about that. And first one is tomorrow. There we go. First one is tomorrow at 12:30 Australia time, 7:30 in California, and 10:30 tomorrow morning in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. 古至今永独转灯，续传灯 ，OK。古至今永续传灯，那个研讨会、讨论会，就是11月份，10月份，明天10点半、12点半，昨天后天不，哎呀 ，How do you do that? So 你在加州是晚上7点半 ，OK. There we go, and there's a QR code here. Anybody wants to snap that? 你如果要拍这个 QR code， 中文 QR code 中文叫什么？二维法。Okay, everybody got that? Did it work? Terry, did it take you there? 打通吗 ？Cliff, 你试试看。I could do it too, I guess, but we're seeing if the QR codes are ubiquitous in China these days. 可以打通 Good? Excellent. 好的 Okay. Ancient wisdom, with its modern applications, carrying on the torch is the full name of that. Okay. And here we go. Moving forward, are we ready? Ready? Here we go. 众生非众生，而具无真实。 如是诸法性，是亦俱非有。Living beings and no living beings, both are neither true nor real. So it is with the nature of dharmas. In reality, they do not exist. Okay, look at the Chinese. It's a pattern similar with the one above. 众生, multitude born, i.e., beings that exist because of a multitude of conditions or relations. 非众生, not the absence of living beings. Both of them are completely 无真实, not true or real. So living beings and non-living beings are completely unreal. They have no reality, nothing ultimately real in them. 如是诸法性. In this way, so here's the analogy, right? Like this all Dharma nature, 实义俱非有. The real meaning completely does not exist. In reality, living beings and no living beings, both don't exist. Okay? So again, on the surface of it, somebody goes, hey, you know what? Baloney, you sky pilots, just leave me in the dust. How can you, don't you have anything better to do? Why don't you go out and play golf? Why don't you go out and watch the cricket? Like go boating. What are you talking about? Living beings and no living, there are no living beings. Give me a no living being. So it's like, no, that's not, okay. If that's the way, what are you doing in this lecture if that's your response? Well, I'm giving you a straw man who probably is too mean for reality. So, but I'm always trying to do both sides. A responsible New York Times journalist. Let's give both sides of the story. So, what does he mean when he says living beings and no living beings? What he's saying is that he's giving us that analogy because he wants to point to something else, using the analogy as something we know, living beings. So he can point to something we don't know and we can't reach with our discriminating mind. So what is it? He's talking about dharmas. So he's stalking a bigger prey. He's fishing for a bigger fish than saying living beings and no living beings. They are not true and real. So, okay. Granted, this is deep. This is deep. This is not your ordinary conversation about the weather. It's not ordinary conversation about, the San Francisco Bay Warriors in Japan playing exhibition basketball, which is fun and entertaining and diverting, but ultimately is entertainment. It's just there to divert you. It won't make you hurt any less in the long run. What the Bodhisattva Forest of Vigor wants to do is to make us hurt less in the ultimate. He wants to end suffering for us because that's what the Buddha's job is. Our Bodhisattva is here praising the Buddha, not by saying, oh, the Buddha's so cool. He's not praising the Dharma. He's using the Dharma the Buddha left in order to teach everybody, including the other bodhisattvas in the room and all of us, about the nature of reality. I'll give you one of our favorites, and it's, don't you wish we had a dozen of these examples? But you remember the sixth patriarch? When he got tested by the fifth patriarch at Huangmei at Yellow Plums there in Hebei. Huangmei 在河北吧？是吗？不是湖北，河北。Huangmei，湖北啊，湖北，在湖北。So in the province of Hubei. So it's right on the far eastern tip of Hubei. The fifth patriarch knew it was time to pass on his robe and bowl and to step down. He wasn't going to be patriarch, the authority holding the Dharma. So he said, write a poem, all of you, all you disciples, write a poem and I'll judge who's ready for to be the next patriarch. And everybody in the monastery, all the older and younger monks, did a very Asian thing. It's not a Chinese thing, it's an Asian thing, which is you look to the elders and you don't step over them. You don't challenge the elders' authority. And there was an elder among the Sangha whose name was Shenxiu. He was learned, he was from a noble family, he was apparently a good guy, they say, and he was their Zhanglao. He was their senior, and so he'll write it. We'll let him write it. Unfortunately, for the competition, Shenxiu his mind was still in duality. He had not yet Ming Xin Jian Xing, lit up his mind and seen his nature. So he submitted a poem for the fifth patriarch's inspection, and he was full of doubts that it was going to reveal him as awakened. He was still in duality. And so he said, the body is a Bodhi tree, the mind a mirror stand bright, at all times wipe it clean, let no dust alight. And if we're looking through this lens, clearly the body, the Bodhi tree, the mind, wipe the body, wipe the mirror stand clean. And there's duality there. He is looking at dharmas and non-dharmas, living beings and non-living beings. He's looking at those two things, just the way our Bodhisattva today wants us to see, oh, here's duality. But you know what? Bodhisattva says, neither one exists. So, back to our story, right? Sixth patriarch was not the sixth patriarch. He was a barbarian from the south. Spoke Chinese with a drawl like this. You know, Texans speak in Chinese, Mississippians, Alabamans speak in Chinese. So he was a barbarian. He had no education. He was a woodcutter, son of a wood gatherer. He was a working class guy. And yet he had done the work of purifying his mind, removing the ignorance. He had heard the Jin Gang Jing, he heard the Diamond Sutra, the Vajra Sutra, and he woke up. And so he came out, saw the poem on the wall, and realized, no, this is not it. So he said, the body is no Bodhi stand. The mind, no mirror stand bright. Fundamentally, there's no such thing. Where could dust alight? And by doing that, he's doing what our Bodhisattva does. He's pointing right to the nature, where all things are the same in that they don't exist equally, and yet all dharmas still can appear when conditions arise. So he is not insisting that nothing exists. Be clear on that point. That would be one edge, that if he said, no living beings, that would be attaching to one side and not the ultimate point. So that's a great story to point to. It's great poetry as well. So the sixth patriarch, the future sixth patriarch, who was still the young man, still a layman at the time, was pointing to it, and now our Bodhisattva is doing the same thing. All right, here we go. This is what you keep seeing every time I share my screen this is the commentary from the Tang Dynasty by Master Chengguan, Qingliang Guoshi. And he in the verse we just looked at, 众生非众生二俱无真实如是诸法性实义俱非有 He analyzes it in his first comment. He said, what is it about? He says, false names. Names are not the real thing. And whoa, okay. So that's whenever somebody does that, if it's the right time, my mind always goes, yes, that's true. Gold, the metal, I don't have any jewelry, but if I had a gold ring, gold and the color of our golden wallaby's fur, if you switch languages, you lose it all. It's completely different, right? What's a golden wallaby in French? Un wallaby de jaune, un wallaby d'or, right? Le wallaby d'or would be le or la wallaby d'or. So yeah, 黄金的动物，一个袋鼠. Suddenly it's like the name is like, oh no, I'm totally lost because I don't speak that language. What is a golden wallaby in Icelandic? So right, once you introduce the names, you go, good grief, what we know is so fragile. Just knowledge itself is just so razor edge. How many languages exist? Over 200 major languages, and yet they don't talk to each other. So the names are false. And then he says, yeah, but the wallaby and the golden ring are both empty. You try to grab them, and what you discover is they are empty, unsatisfying, not self, and they're moving on because they're only relational. They only exist because those hydrocarbons come together to give us the body of the wallaby, and the metal comes together briefly to give us the gold. So, boy, we are swimming in this ocean of temporary affinities. And in the midst of that, what's a good thing to do? Be kind to each other. Be kind to each other. So that when the affinities come into our lives, when we cross circles, cross paths with those other beings and with these dharmas, it will not hurt us, it will help us and give us an opportunity to help others. That's the best way to live. And one really good place to start with that, not to beat this drum too often, but start with your dinner table. Being kind. Find ways to nourish your body that don't involve harming other beings. Really good way to live, so that when we see each other in the future, when we recoalesce as this cloud of atoms and karma, the glue that holds the atoms together, when we see each other again, we'll recognize each other. Oh, hi, that's right. Last time you didn't kill me. We could be friends again, right? And the opposite is also true. If we mutually harm and consume each other, next time we see each other, it's like, ooh, you again. And you live in a world of anxiety and fear. All right. So let's do another verse. One more to go. And then we'll ask, let's see. We'll preview it here. 譬如未来世, 上次 let's see, 无相故无别. Okay, we'll take a sidestep into the commentary just for fun. Here's our verse. And so we had the analogy of gold and the golden color, living beings and no living beings. Here we go. 譬如未来世，无有过去相，诸法亦如是，无有一切相。Just the way worlds of the future contain no traces of the past, all dharmas are the same. They bear no characteristics at all. So, three kinds of times: past time, present time, future time. He says, future, if you look in the future, you won't be able to take any piece of it that says, oh, this is the past, moved into the future. You can't. Because why? Future, 过去是不可得，现在是不可得，未来是. You can't get the future. It's moving. It's made up of stuff that falls apart. You can't grab it. All dharmas, that's an analogy again, like gold and like living beings, to say dharmas too can't be gotten at. No characteristics means you can't know them in any way. What does the commentary say? It says, number 3, 三世胡无欲. It says, past, present, and future alike don't exist.
Oh, no,
share my screen. Thank you. There we go. The 3 periods of time mutually do not exist. Just like what? Like gold and the color gold, like living beings and no living beings. Similarly, you can't get any piece of the past in the future. He says, like, 若未来有过去者, if there was pieces of the past in the future, you wouldn't call it the past. You should call it the past, not the future. Why do you call it the future if you're looking for pieces of the past? So he says, these qualities, these characteristics that we give them are mutually exclusive. So yet, he says, all dharmas are completely unobtainable, and in that way, they are the same. So, yeah, what can we learn? What do we learn from this? One is to pick up the tools that the Buddha gave us to understand the world around us. What did he say? All things that are related, that come from relations, all things that have 有缘, all 众缘的法, 一切法就众缘而生, 众缘而灭. All dharmas come together when the timing is right, and they fall apart when the timing is right. So that's the nature. They are ku kong wu chang wu. All things are, he said, stamped, are signed by what? They are not pleasant, they're ku, bitter. They are kong, they are empty of anything that you can own, that you can buy and sell. They are not self. You can't find any trademark in a oolong tea, oolong cha. That's not coffee, it's tea. It's hot water with leaves in it. But now it's gone. There's a lingering flavor, but it's just like that. All dharmas are the same. Furthermore, they pass on. They're transient. Those are the signs. Not self, transient, empty of identity, and unsatisfying. He said, take that tool. That's a good tool to use to look at what? Here we are sitting in a beautifully adorned Buddha hall on a peaceful spring afternoon in Australia. We don't need to apply that to relieve tremendous discomfort and pressure on us. Why? Conditions are pleasant. As soon as, and I will point back to 2 years ago, we couldn't have done this because of COVID. There was a pandemic. We were all masked. We were all hiding from each other inside our homes. That's pressure. And if at that time we can say, oh yeah, all conditioned dharmas are this way, you got a tool that'll work. If a hurricane has just passed overhead, terrifying you, you can use the dharmas then and not be knocked over. You've got some gongfu. We in Toledo, Ohio, is right at the edge of Lake Erie, one of the 5 Great Lakes in the Midwest of the United States. And it's also known as Tornado Alley. We don't have hurricanes because we're in land, but we do have tornadoes. And the tornadoes come through Indiana and Ohio right there. And we, in my little house I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Toledo, had a basement, like all houses in the Midwest do. And the basement had, we called it the root cellar. And that's where my dad would, he collected the odd bottle of wine, and he had some, a dozen bottles of wine there. And my mom would put up, she called putting up tomatoes. We'd go out and go out to the farm and buy bushels of tomatoes. She had mason jars that she boiled and then pureed and then, prepared not only tomato sauce, but also tomato pieces and also tomato pickles. And the whole family would get involved and you had to, sealing a mason jar, they would explode if you got it wrong. So you had to get the seal just right at the right temperature. We would put all of the tomatoes. She also did peaches. So in the winter, when it's cold and there's no produce because the fields are iced over, you could pull out a jar of tomato sauce and be back in July in Ohio. So it's beautiful. Canning, putting by, you put by vegetables and you put them up. Those are the verbs you use to can vegetables. Anyway, those were what were in the root cellar in my basement in Toledo. And that was the refuge for when the tornadoes came. And anybody who has seen The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland, you'll understand tornadoes. And they had a tornado shelter in the movie The Wizard of Oz, and we too would go running down to the root cellar when a tornado. And I remember being about 10 years old when a tornado came directly over the house. And it sounded like there was a train, a locomotive passing over the house. We were all huddled down in the root cellar. You're supposed to go into the northwest corner because they always came down. You go into so you're not in the corner where things can blow off and hit you. You're in the northwest corner. And the tornado went overhead, and you could just feel the whole house just kind of shift on its foundation. And the noise of the tornado was just terrifying. It was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. And it was sustained for about 30 seconds. And there we go. Okay. Am I, hopefully, yeah, good. I'm not sharing. Right. There we go. So that was, the winds of a hurricane might have been 80 miles an hour maybe, and it's because it's circular like that. But it was absolutely terrifying. And for a 10-year-old kid, I didn't know if I was going to live. And I remember my mother and just saying, hold on tight. And she might have even been enjoying it, my mom, Sagittarian. So, because it was a big adventure. And all of the wine bottles and all of the tomatoes and peaches made it through just fine. They were, they were veterans, and they're sturdy. I think jars you use for canning tomatoes were really sturdy. So I can sympathize with the terror of folks who had a hurricane pass over their heads with winds nearly twice as strong. And then followed by what? A surge when the water rises up suddenly and washes the boats onto the tops of the gas stations and the grocery stores. Boats aren't supposed to be on top of grocery stores. But that's what happened in a hurricane that just came through Florida. So we have one of my regular attendees of Dharma lectures is a friend, the Pioti family, Michael, down in St. Petersburg, Florida, which on Friday, yesterday's lecture, I was looking to see if he had any electricity or internet. And here was a Michael from Waycross, Georgia. I said, Michael, is that you? He says, yeah, evacuated. St. Petersburg, we evacuated up to Georgia. And luckily the hurricane turned east before it hit Georgia. So yeah, that's the reality. And I hope when Michael and all of his neighbors go back to St. Petersburg, that they find everything intact. But Boy, oh boy, quite an experience. And if, in a situation like that, if we are able to say, things that are made of conditions will come apart when those conditions fail, when the time has come for those conditions to come apart, this is a principle of reality. If we can do that, then our Dharma is working for us. We can keep our balance and say, yeah, I'm okay. I have a perspective on the changes that nature gives us. We are all related, and if I can help others who are attached and who are suffering, then that gives me something meaningful to do. So there is strength in applying that wisdom to the world around us. Bit by bit, we learn to accord with cause and effect and to create wholesome causes that then can tie in with those around us. One of the most wholesome of causes would be to learn to recite the Buddha's name. We'll do another one in a minute. What do we do? How do we do it? We've been reciting, remember the 7 Tathagatas? Let's start with that. Here are the 7 Tathagatas' names. We've been practicing this Dharma here, and it's kind of fun because it's really useful if you have animals in your life. Here they are, here are their names. These are the names in English. Tathagata Many Treasures, Tathagata Jewel Victory, Tathagata Buddha with a marvelously formed body, Tathagata with an extensive body, Tathagata Beyond All Fears, that's the fearless Buddha, Tathagata Ambrosia, and Tathagata Amitabha. We do the chanting in Chinese, and it's fun just to learn these sounds, right? So, reciting the names of the 7 Tathagatas. Am I sharing my screen? I need to share my screen. Here we go. Let's take a look again. There we are. Right? We learn their meanings, but then we chant the sounds. Here we go. Namo Do Bao Ru Lai, Namo Bao Shen Ru Lai, Namo Mya Sha Shen Ru Lai, Namo Guang Bo Shen Ru Lai, Namo Li Bu Wei Ru Lai, Namo Gan Ru Lai, Namo Ready? We can do it again. Here we go. Namo Do Bao Ru Lai, Namo Bao Shen Ru Lai, Namo Mya Sha Shen Ru Lai, Namo Guang Bo Shen Ru Lai, Namo Li Bu Wei Ru Lai, Namo Gan Lu Wang Ru Lai, Namo Hami Do Ru Lai. Got one more time. Ready? Here we go. Namo Do Namo Bao Shen Ru Lai, Namo Mya Sha Shen Ru Lai, Namo Guang Bo Shen Ru Lai, Namo Li Bu Wei Ru Lai, Namo Gan Lu Wang Ru Lai, Namo Ami Do Ru Lai. Indeed. Here we go. Let's see now. I wanted to share, found something enjoyable, and it was a movie made 2015 when some young men and women actually made the resolve to leave the home life and become monastics. And somebody made a brief film called leaving home. I wanted to share that today, kind of inspiring. After several years of preparation in the DRBA Lady Training Program, 3 men and 2 women took the next step along the Buddhist path and made vows to become novice monks and nuns. Here we go.
长归合掌 kneel and put your palms together. 愿大德为我作和尚起阿舍利，我以大德故得出家受沙弥沙弥尼戒，此名故就礼拜万宝。
Buddha named eternal light made vows to save creation. He made a land where suffering's gone, a place of liberation. So use his vows and be reborn, in lotus flowers delighting. You simply keep his name in mind and never stop reciting. The scenes are of these men and women going through the ceremony, and the mothers of some of the candidates experiencing the feeling that mothers have as they see their children become disciples, monastic disciples. But there was an opportunity to say some things inspiring. People will recognize Jin Wei Shi, whose voice we often hear at the end of my lectures. Maybe Jin Wei Shi will be talking today, who knows. But I had a chance to share some thoughts that I had about this process, which I wanted to play here.
In Buddhist history, this is a page in Buddhist history in America and in the West. And you are written on that page. The vows that you took this morning are going to result in living beings and people and family and friends being able to find a path out of confusion. In the world, this is not a time of great light. This is a time of trial and confusion for many people. And to be able in this time to find a true refuge place, a place that is a door that leads to growth, to development, to evolution, to maturation of your mind and your spirit, is a great gift to not only to your family, but to people who will see you in the future. So I think the choice that you made today to come forward and make these vows in front of the Buddhas and in front of your family and your peers is very good news for this country, for the world, indeed, and for all living beings. So I encourage you to remind yourself every morning of the feeling that you have today, and to, when times get hard, as they inevitably will, anything that's worthwhile requires effort and sacrifice. But when times get hard, remember the spirit of the assembly and Master Hua and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas invisibly supporting you this morning. And I think there's no obstacle that you won't be able to overcome. So congratulations and well done. Namo Amida Buddha, Namo
Buddha Namo Amitabha Buddha Namo Amitabha. Go to drba.org to find out more. And you can see Jinwei Shi's mom saying, I'm so happy my son has found something he loves, really happy. Bless her heart. She's experiencing what most moms feel as they see their son or daughter heading off into the Sangha. So, yeah, but years later, those tears are gone and the smile is real. She sees how her son has flourished in the Buddhist Sangha, and she is indeed pleased to be the mother of a bhikshu. Pretty special. All right, let's see now. We've got just a few minutes here. I'm going to invite the bhikshus to give us the story of what's happening at Berkeley Monastery, and then let's see here, because we have, one more time, try this again. We have some Berkeley Monastery, my fingers, there we go, that's what we're looking for. Okay, Jinchuan, Jinwei, are you there to?
Yeah, Amitofo.
Okay, good.
Sherry said you're not sharing yet.
Not sharing. I've done that a bunch today. Wait. Okay, hold on. Got it. There we go. Okay.
Okay, so first is Dr. Martin Verhoeven will be beginning his Avatamsaka Sutra lectures plus meditation this Friday, October 7th. So I know many people have been tuning into that, so please join in online if you have the time. They will be broadcasting on YouTube. The next one is September 29th. There's a talk by one of the professors at DRBU, Lauren Bausch, who is a big Star Wars fan. And she's going to talk about Star Wars and cultivation. How do you train to be a Jedi?
That's Thursday? That happened already.
Oh, whoops. Oh, Thursday, September 20th. Yeah.
Is it available online, do you know?
It will be. Let me check.
It should be your Saturday, so 2 days prior.
Yes, it happened on Thursday, and there's a recording, and then they say it will be uploaded to YouTube.
Okay.
Let me check if it's already available.
All right. Yeah, moving forward. Okay. So continue, please.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, no wonder. I think you couldn't hear me. We actually have a Great Compassion Mantra Dedication of Merit, October 30th, end of the month. And if you just keep going down, we just have our regular ceremonies and activities as usual. But I also wanted to mention, Dharmas, I didn't get the poster for the series of talks for CDB. But I think that one's really interesting to share.
I've already done that. So
sorry.
For you, so no worries, no problems.
Okay. So yeah, so I think other than that, that's pretty much the same schedule. The main difference is Dr. Verhoeven will be starting his lecture.
All righty. Good. Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. And in that case, come back here. There we go. With the last 3 minutes of our time here, I would like to invite everybody to join me in transferring merit. We've talked quite a bit about the hurricane that just came through Florida, but that is one of many disasters that could benefit from our transference of merit. If you follow financial news, with the current the unrest with the British pound sterling, among other currencies, if times get really hard, we could find ourselves in another global recession, another financial crisis worldwide. And stranger things have happened. You know, it's not impossible. But that would be a disaster that is not based on the climate. It's not based on dictators, mad dictators invading sovereign nations. It's a financial crisis. So we just trace it all back. All of these dharmas don't exist at all. If I can step into the language of our bodhisattva, and yet they affect our lives with more or less grief and misery and suffering. So what do we do as Buddhists with tools to bring to bear? We recite the mantra of Medicine Buddha. Guan Ding Zhen Yan, it's called, the mantra for anointing the crown of the head. And here's what it says. It goes, homage to the blessed healer and teacher, the king of jewel-like radiance, to the one who is like that, the worthy, the fully awakened one. And say it this way, to the healing, to the healing, to the healer, awakened, svaha. That's how the mantra goes if you try to translate it. Most importantly is we put it in our hearts, and there's a real energy to the vibrations, and we can transfer that out to all living beings, and we ourselves feel better, and those around us feel better. All right. Let's see now. Jerry has let us know that the Star Wars lecture video, if we want to watch Star Wars lecture video, that's YouTube, which is not available in China. So check on YouTube. If you can, if that's something that's available to you for that Star Wars lecture. Transfer the merit, send it out with a wish for whatever to work on whatever unhappy circumstances of your choice. You have a variety of unhappy circumstances to improve. So the more we recite, the more we transfer, the more sincere, the farther our minds reach. So let's do it now. Pravarachaya Tathagata Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tathagata Aisaji Aisaji Aisaja Samukate Swaha Namo Bhagavate Saja Vaidurya Pravarachaya Tathagata Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tathagata Aisaji Aisaji Aisaja Samukate Swaha Namo Bhagavate Aisaja Vaidurya Pravarachaya Tathagata Bhagavate Samyak Sambuddhaya Yata Om Asaji Asaji Aisaya Sankate Swaha. We can bow to the Buddhists together, and I look forward to seeing you here next week with me to look into the further praises of Bodhisattva Forest of Vigor. Here we go. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Okay, that's going to do it for us for today. We'll see you all next week. Amitofo. Bye, everybody.